न गुरोरधिकं तत्त्वं न गुरोरधिकं तपः।
Om Amritageetananda Namaha. Welcome to Amrita Vaibhavam. This is a series of talks, devotional songs, spiritual discussions and symposiums by Swamis, Swaminis, Brahmacharis, Brahmacharinis, householder devotees, staff and students of Amrita institutions. In Taittiriya Upanishad, it is mentioned that the Guru imparts his knowledge, and to check how much was grasped by his disciples, he would choose one or two of them and ask them to repeat what was discussed. The same technique is being implemented in modern institutions as well. Amma also uses the same technique. With this in mind, let's watch today's episode. Om Amritageetananda Namaha.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Jayamotha Palakakunthalavatim Tejomayam Nashtakim Digdhapanga Vilokinim Bhagavatim Mantatpita Srimukim Valsalyamritavarshinim Sumadhiram Sankirtanarapinim Shamangi Mattikta Suktim Amritarandatikam Om Amritageetananda Namaha, Om Gurubhyo Namaha, Om Gam Ganapate Namaha, Om Mahasaraswati Namaha, Om. My infinite prostrations of the lotus feet of my Sadguru, Sri Mata Amritanandamayi Devi, Universal Teacher, Universal Mother, and my humble pranams to all of us beloved children watching this program. The main topic is Bhagavad Gita. Just 2 days back we had celebrated our Gita Jayanti in Puri also. So Amma herself has given her message. So once Amma herself has given her message, nothing else remains to be said, because she is Krishna himself in another form. That's what. It's not our belief, it is our experience that she is Bhagavan Krishna himself in another form to come and guide us, to bless us to and take us to our goal in life. So therefore, what we have, but there are certain things which Amma may not tell us. She will never tell us that she is the most ideal Guru. Amma will never said that. She will never say that. So what we have to discuss is how to be an ideal disciple. So I will speak for a short time only. Our Dr.Sriram Devanathan, principal of our Bangalore Amrita College of Engineering, he will be giving a detailed talk on Bhagavad Gita, and we will conclude with a very soul-stirring bhajan which Amma herself had composed when she was very young. Years back, we know the bhajan also. Kanebin Purule Karuna Mayane. That song we will conclude with that. So a few words let me see. We have to remember that Arjuna, Bhagavad Gita is a song. It came out of Bhagavan Krishna's heart, and it was meant for Arjuna. We have to remember that Arjuna is not the first recipient of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is an eternal teaching, the teachings of the Vedas, and we know very well in the 4th chapter, Bhagavan begins with Imam Vivasvate Yogam, Proktavan Aham Abhyayam. He begins with that. Arjuna, I gave this knowledge to Vivaswan, Surya Bhagavan. So he was millions of years back. So he had received the knowledge millions of years back, and it must have been Sakshat Bhagavan Vishnu himself when he was at the time Sri Krishna avatar was not there. It must have been Sakshat Bhagavan Vishnu. He must have given it to son, or must have been Hayagriva. We do not know who exactly it is. So Surya Bhagavan received, and his generation, so the Sri Rama, he comes in the Surya Amsha. We know that very well. So that is what we have to understand. So this is before Arjuna, we can see so many other great disciples of great rishis. They were very, very great rishis, and they were very great disciples. They all of them, they received this knowledge in the Upanishads. We can see that, and we can never forget our 7-year-old Nachiketas from Kathopanishad. Kathopanishad, Yamadeva, Yamaraja, Dharmaraja, he gave the knowledge to Nachiketas when Nachiketas was only 7 years old, and we can see in Bhagavad Gita also, even though there are 18 chapters, Bhagavan Krishna, he gave the main teaching in the first Arjuna. He poured out his grievings, all his problems, and then patiently listening to that, Bhagavan Krishna gave the answer mainly in the second chapter, the Jnana Yoga, and the third chapter, the Karma Yoga. The essence is in the 2 chapters. So here we can see one of the Shankaracharyas, he had in Sringeri, if I remember, his name is Swami Jnanananda. He has written a 10 verses short text called Jiva Yatra. This is the Jiva, this is the individual soul, and he has compared the human life to a journey to its goal. And therefore, clearly in the Bhagavad Gita, what was said in the Upanishads, in the Vedanta, that was summarized in the Bhagavad Gita. It was very clearly mentioned what is the real nature of man and how to purify himself and reach his goal. We can see that very well. You can see man's life is compared to a journey. So the problem is, the Jiva in Jiva Yatra, Swami Jnanananda says, I will not give the shloka, it takes a lot of time. So it says, all living beings, not only human beings, all living beings, they have one goal. They are in search of one goal, Nityananda Sukham. Nityananda Sukham. That is, we have to reach that goal. But unfortunately, what happens is that where exactly is that goal, and the path which leads to that goal, that is not known. So that is not known by the majority of the living beings, and therefore they are not able to achieve that goal. That's what he says in the first verse. He says that, and then Swamiji says in the second verse, he says in the Kathopanishad, in the Vedanta Kathopanishad, in the middle of Kathopanishad, it clearly mentions what exactly is that. Najayate mirateva vipaschit. He says that, and the Chaitanyam in every living being, that is the goal to be reached. And he beautifully he says, we can see when we in our ashram, Amritageetananda ashram also, on top we can see the beautiful statue of the Bhagavad Gita, the chariot, where Bhagavan Krishna himself sitting in as a charioteer, Sarathi, and Arjuna, with this bow and arrow. You can see that it's very symbolic. It is a symbolic meaning. Therefore, we say in Kathopanishad, beautifully, Yamaraja, Dharmaraja, Yamadeva tells the Nachiketas, because he is comparing the human body to a chariot. So he says, Atmanam Ratanam Vidhi, Shariram Rathanaivacha, Buddhim tu Saratam Vidhi, Mana Pagrahamevacha. You know the shloka like that. He says the individual self is the person in the chariot. So Arjuna is the individual soul. So and the human body is the chariot. Sri Krishna Bhagavan, the charioteer, Sarathi, he is the buddhi, the viveka. The five horses are the five sense organs, and the reins are the different thoughts. Therefore, if we know very well, we have a vehicle, a motor car, a very beautiful motor car. If we are an expert driver, then we will enjoy the ride. If we are not an expert rider, if we cannot drive a car properly, we will never enjoy the ride. Therefore, when Sri Krishna Bhagavan, he himself is the Sarathi, the charioteer, the guide. So therefore, the intellect, he is the intellect. The intellect, we say that it should be saturated by the knowledge of the Shastras. Shastra Jnanam, which has an intellect which has very well digested the teachings of the Veda Shastra. That intellect is, and that thoughts is, they are very focused. And then the five sense organs, the five horses are the five sense organs, and therefore is when such a charioteer is there, an able, very able charioteer is there, and then that buddhi, that can control the mind, and the mind can control the five sense organs, the eyes, the ears, the nose, taste, touch. These are the five forces. These are controlled by the mind, and the mind is controlled by the intellect. This is what we can see, and therefore, if that is there, then we can, because Sarathi, our Sri Krishna Bhagavan is there, so therefore we can reach our goal of human life very safely, and we say we are very, very blessed to have a Sadguru like Amma. Again we say Sri Krishna Bhagavan himself has come in another form and simplified the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads. So when she is there as the charioteer, when she is there to guide us, we can, with little effort, what is required here is total faith and surrender. That is what we have to develop in order to be an ideal disciple, an ideal Shishya. By Amma's grace, we will all reach our goal, which is it is not somewhere far in heaven, but it is our own true self, the ever-shining Atma, the Chaitanyam. Let us pray to Amma to take us to our goal. And now let us listen to Dr.Sriram Devanathan, principal of our Bangalore College of Engineering. He will speak, he will elaborate on the Bhagavad Gita, and we will conclude with a very, as I said, very beautiful soul-stirring bhajan which was composed by our Amma herself when she was very young. And just let us listen to Dr. Sriram Devanathan now. Om Amritageetananda.
ध्यायामो धवलावगुण्ठनवतीं तेजोमयीं नैष्टिकीं स्निग्धापाङ्गविलोकिनीं भगवतीं मन्दस्मितश्रीमुखीं वात्सल्यामृतवर्षिणीं सुमधुरं सङ्कीर्तनालापिनीं श्यामाङ्गीं मधुसिक्तसूक्तिम् अमृतानन्दात्मिकाम् ईश्वरीम्। ॐ अमृतेश्वर्यै नमः। ॐ अमृतेश्वर्यै नमः। ॐ अमृतेश्वर्यै नमः। Om Namah Shivaya. My name is Sriram Devanathan. I currently serve as Principal, Amrita Schools of Engineering and Computing in Bengaluru. Today is the very auspicious Gita Jayanti day. Very, very special time of the year. Certainly, when we look at Bharatiya Samskriti, it is unimaginable without the mention of this amazing, life-changing, transforming, most essential volume of spiritual literature. It has influenced thinkers across the world. It has influenced thinkers of all religious denominations. It has influenced thinkers across time. Today, its influence is no less than when it was first propounded by Sri Krishna to Arjuna. And how can we forget the author, the great sage Vyasa Maharishi? Now, what am I going to speak about? If we look at the various commentaries or bhashyas or tatparyas, the interpretations by Mahatmas, such as from Adi Shankaracharya or from Sri Ramanujacharya. So first, what am I going to talk about today? This voluminous, most amazing scriptural work, this gem of spiritual literature that has profoundly influenced great thinkers across the world, across time. What am I going to talk about? What additional thing could I possibly say? And the answer is, it is not going to be additional. There have been so many wonderful, inspiring commentaries, bhashyas. There have been wonderful, amazing tatparyas, the interpretations from the greats like Adi Shankaracharya, Sri Ramanujacharya, Sri Madhvacharya, Sri Nimbarka, and many others. So, I would not claim to own even a millionth of the depth of understanding that they had when they made the commentaries and the interpretations. Rather, I would only say that I am a parrot speaking in the light of my own tiny microcosmic experience. It is only from that. And may there be some divine grace for this to be of some use to the listeners. Where do I start? Gita, Bhagavad Gita, the song of the divine or the divine song. Now, when we think about this term, the divine song, you can say God's song. What does it mean to say? Is it God singing? What kind of song? What kind of music is there? What kind of lyrics are there? What kind of poetry is there? Who is it for? These are worth reflecting upon, because it says it's a divine song. Certainly, if we have faith in that, it must be of tremendous or the greatest value for us. And such is the thought behind the commentaries and the interpretations, that it is the greatest in terms of value. Why is it so? Why is it so important? When I look at what it actually is conveying, what the Bhagavad Gita is conveying, and how is it that we can place it in the context of our human existence, our day-to-day life, and so on. The first thing that comes to mind is with respect to the opening word and the closing word from the 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. So the first word is dharma, and the last word of the last verse in the 18th chapter is mama. So if you combine the two, dharma and mama, so it says mama dharma, my dharma. And I wish to be careful in stating that dharma is not to be equated with the English word duty, although duty may be some part of it, but it has to be understood in a much deeper way. So if this is one key takeaway from the Gita, that it has to do with my dharma, the question would also be, how do I know what is my dharma? And how do I conduct myself in conformance with that mama dharma? So I must know what my dharma is. How do I execute this plan? And for that, I wish to draw upon another analogy with respect to the origin of Valmiki Ramayana, where it is stated that Maharshi Valmiki used to be a robber, and with the grace of some sages there, some great rishis, he was completely transformed. They gave him one single simple exercise. Because he was a robber, he used to loot and kill people, and the word that was familiar to him, very familiar to him, was mara. So they only said, you keep repeating that, mara, mara. So mara is, if you look at it even in the Hindi term without going deeper into the root, so to hit, to kill and so on. Mara is, you can say, that which is dead and so on. But they asked him to repeat this. Isn't it strange? So he kept repeating, and what emerged from that, Mara, 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 Rama, Ram. So it became Rama, 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 Rama. That's how it became, and he was completely transformed. So just flipping that one word. Now, if you look at this analogy being extended here, Gita, 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 and it transforms to Tagi. So Tyagi or Tyaga refers to a sense of sacrifice. So when we transfer this analogy to the current context of Gita, so we say Gita, 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 and you flip it, it becomes Tagi, Tagi, Tagi. What does it mean? Tyaga or Tyagi. Therefore, the song of the divine has to do with Mama Dharma, and how do we actually implement Mama Dharma? Through Tyaga. Of course, 18 chapters are there. So much message is there which requires lifetimes to absorb and to assimilate and to put it into practice. But then we have to start somewhere, and perhaps this is as good a starting point as any. So to keep it very simple, he talks about Mama Dharma, and how do I know Mama Dharma? Through Tyaga, or to become a Tyagi. Now we can delve deeper and try to make connections between all the 18 chapters and these two concepts of Tyaga and Mama Dharma. Where do we start in terms of the motivation to learn about the Gita? Very simple. We do things if we find there is a need. So what is the need here? It turns out we all experience suffering in this human existence. We all experience pain, we experience conflicts, we experience problems in any walk of life, at any age. We experience all these things. We have an inner, undeniable motivation to always be happy, to be peaceful, to have a peaceful, joyous existence as long as we live here. We also have a resistance in our minds when we have problems. Why should I go through this? What did I do to deserve this pain and suffering? Why is it that so many people are suffering in this world? And we become depressed, we become sad and unhappy, we become restless and agitated, and so on. This could lead to some other things where, for example, I may adopt a stand that, okay, my happiness is important, I don't care what happens to others. As long as I can do something, I will make my effort, I will earn money and I will be happy, I will do whatever I can to get the things I need to be happy, and so on. Right? So, this is a very common way of thinking. This is what goes on in the minds of most people. And so, this kind of context is very beautifully set in the very first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, think about this, that there is a voluminous piece of spiritual literature, and people might say, oh, start on a bright, jolly note when you are writing something like this. And here is something where the main theme of that chapter, and that too it is called yoga, right, is about despondency. This English word despondency, we have to think about the translation of that first chapter's name, Arjuna Vishada Yoga. So that despondency word says you are not just sad or unhappy, you are at such a state, such a low state that you are paralyzed by it. You are paralyzed into inaction. You've lost all hope, lost all faith, and you are just like frozen. What do? I am so sad. Situation seems beyond hope. That kind of a state, what do we do? And certainly we may face something like this in our lives. We face a lot of problems, but we may get into that state where we lose hope. What do we do? And so the whole of the Bhagavad Gita is premised and founded upon this context. And imagine in that kind of a state, where is Arjuna? In the middle of a huge battlefield. And of course, we have to understand this in a symbolic context and in the context of today's life and in our life. In the face of our problems and our existence, we have to understand this. And certainly the parallels are tremendous, so many parallels. Every part, every word from Arjuna and Krishna, we can relate to our own lives. And then suddenly things start becoming clearer in our minds. Oh, I had this experience. I can understand what Arjuna is going through, was going through. I can understand what Krishna is saying. We start seeing that, and the clouds start clearing, and the sun is shining through them. So what is this now? This context is a foundation for the whole book, for the whole approach that Krishna is giving. So he is saying, okay, you all have problems. How do you deal with it? How do you deal with the fact that you may be completely weakened by these thoughts that consume you, that make you feel you are sad, you are depressed, restless, agitated? How do you deal with this? And so that is the foundation. It says there is a solution. But there is something more beautiful. Now this is something that I have seen not just in the Gita, but even in the Ramayana, that there is a great amount of patience required from the seeker, the spiritual seeker. Why do I say this? I will just deviate a little bit to answer this question about this idea of patience when we read the spiritual literature. You see, when Lord Ram has killed Ravana and along with Sita, Lakshmana, Hanuman, they have all come back to Ayodhya, and in Ayodhya Kanda, there is a detailed conversation between Rama and Bharata. Now you see, he has just come back after so many years of exile and so much to catch up between the brothers. And so he is asking a very simple question, how have you been, right? Ram is asking Bharata, how are things? It's like that, right? But you see that how are things simple question, it runs for pages and pages. So Ram is actually asking a question and then he is asking some details about the question. So for pages and pages, if you see, when I first saw this, I was just amazed. Imagine an actual conversation having between Rama and Bharata, actual conversation, and imagine you are there, you are just watching. One person is asking question to the other person. So they ask something and they should wait for the other person to answer, right? But here, for pages and pages, the questions are going on. Rama is asking question after question after question. He is asking something and then he is following it up with another question and some details about that question and the details about that question. Bharata is just sitting there, he is listening and listening and listening. It's a very, very beautiful thing when we understand the depth of this, the reason for something like this. But because you see, for a normal person, when someone asks a question, all kinds of preconceived notions are just jumping out. Are we really listening to that other person, listening to that question in its entirety, in its depth, being able to absorb every single word of that question and in the right context? Are we really doing that? How good a listener are we? And this particular section, the Ayodhya Kanda, is beautiful in the way it just captures that. Because you see, even with the questions that Rama is asking, so many beautiful messages are coming out to Bharata. See, normally we say, if somebody has to give Upadesha, somebody has to give an explanation, they will be giving that series of statements. They will be giving many descriptions. But here, there is no description, no statement, questions after question after question after question. But that is where the beauty comes in. Through the questions itself, so many messages are being delivered to Bharata. Likewise, we see what happens in Gita. First chapter is entirely Arjuna. He is kind of mentally collapsed and he is just pouring out. Krishna is just silently listening to everything. Then the second chapter, Krishna starts talking and then Bharata is just listening. But you see, in every aspect of this, so much depth is there that even in the questions that Krishna is asking, there is so much meaning. Because the first thing is when we say, okay, we all have problems, we all have pain, we all have suffering, we all have conflicts. Then Arjuna is there, Krishna now assumes the role of a guru, of a master, of a teacher. So what happens when a student asks a question, the master is supposed to give a solution. But something different happens here. Krishna is shattering the question by saying, you are saying there is this problem, there is this conflict. Are you sure? Because Krishna is even challenging that part. He is saying there is no problem, there is no conflict. See, Arjuna is spent, he is just poured out like anything. I am in so much pain, I am depressed, I am so despondent, I don't know what to do, this huge problem. And Krishna is saying there is no problem. So imagine that, instead of giving the solution, he is saying there is no problem. So just suddenly your whole mindset is changed, your whole perspective is changed. Because if Arjuna is open-minded at that point, he is saying, what is this? How can I say that there is no problem? Here I am on the battlefield. Here are my relatives, my close uncle, my cousins. They are all there. They are people that I have grown up with. Somebody has taught me for years and years. Somebody there is who I have played with for years and years. I have studied with them and now I am being asked to kill them. So how can someone say there is no problem? And that is where the rest of the Bhagavad Gita explains. Why was I mistaken in saying that there is a problem? What was wrong with my thinking? So now this is very, very important, because all the time we are in this situation. We are very, very quick to reach the conclusion that there is a problem, there is a conflict, there is pain and suffering, and we don't stop to think that it could be any other way, that maybe there isn't a problem. How do I get around to positioning myself in such a way that I can understand there is no problem? Or I should start asking, to whom is the problem? Can this be any other way? That is where Bhagavad Gita beautifully demonstrates how we can shift our thinking and not just assume and run with the premise that there is a problem, now I need a solution. Certainly it gives solutions, but it's very important to challenge that question. From what perspective do I have a problem? From what perspective can I say there is no problem? And that is in the contents of that Bhagavad Gita. So supposing I say I am suffering, and then I say I am not suffering, can these two exist at the same time? And you might say, that is so foolish, how can it be possible? But this is where the Gita says such contradictions can be resolved. So how is it that we go about resolving these kinds of conflicts? Then we need to understand what are the central tenets, the central messages across these 18 chapters. Is there some sort of common themes that emerge? All the messages that are there in the Bhagavad Gita, can I classify them into some simple themes? Certainly the organization is very, very clear. 18 chapters, they all have their names. There are different types of yogas being taught. But overall, can I group them into something simple? I would like to believe so. So what I believe emerges as the central questions being answered are the following. Number one, what is the nature of myself? What is the true nature of myself? Question number one. Question number two, what is the nature of the universe? What is the nature of the universe? Question number three, what is the relationship between myself and the universe? Okay. Question number three, what is the relationship between myself and the universe? Question number four, how do I live in harmony with the universe? How do I live in harmony with the universe? I believe, from my little understanding and experience, that the Gita provides answers to all of these in a very systematic and beautiful way, in a way that leaves no room for doubt. How does it do that? It takes several different concepts and constructs and tries to give so many analogies, examples and practical instructions on how you actually understand not just in an intellectual way, but in an experiential way. There are instructions, there are prescriptions, there are warnings, there are encouragements, there are motivations and inspirations, and there are, most importantly, there is an assurance. Because you see, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is talking so much, explaining so much. I mean, you see chapter after chapter after chapter, the depth to which Krishna goes in terms of trying to explain and convince Arjuna, who is in that utter state of helplessness and hopelessness, who is in that utter state of despondency. Krishna is speaking so much he's convincing, trying to convince Arjuna about making himself rise out of that despondency and jump into action with energy, with enthusiasm, with faith. He's doing that. But after all that, after so much effort from Krishna, Arjuna is still not convinced. And then what happens? Krishna shows him the Virat Swarupa, the cosmic form. So you see, after that, Arjuna is just, how can someone not be blown away by that? How can someone not be completely transformed when they see that kind of a cosmic form? It's just an understanding and faith beyond any room for doubt. So that cosmic form. So we have to understand the significance of that as well. But you see, after all the work that has been done by Krishna, finally this is one very important thing, because this is a guaranteed assurance. Because then Arjuna suddenly knows, not just intellectually but experientially, how foolish am I to think that I have to do something, that I have to fight the war, I have to raise my bow, I have to shoot an arrow, I have to kill someone, I have to fight this battle, I have to win this war, I have to protect someone. How foolish am I to think that? Because now, beyond doubt, he knows it is the Lord doing everything. That one Virat Swarupa, Darshana, completely guarantees assurance to him. So you see, every part has been thought through in the way the Gita is presented as, number one, the right perspective to understand if we have a problem, and number two, once we understand the perspective, what are the solutions? The solutions to all our ills and ailments, the solution to all our pain and suffering, by providing the right understanding in an intellectual and experiential manner. This is being delivered. So now continuing, I will take just 2 or 3 small topics from the chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, just to provide a taste for the beauty of the practical teachings that are brought out. So first thing is in understanding dharma. As I mentioned, it is not to be merely equated with the English word duty. So what do we understand as dharma then? So I go back to those questions that I raised. What is the nature of my true self? What is the true nature of myself? What is the nature of the cosmos, the universe? What is the relationship between the two? If you look at the universe, first thing is there is an objective reality and subjective reality. What we consider to be physical objects, let us say, my hand. So I say my hand, it is solid. If I take a rock, I say it is solid. If I touch this wood in the chair, I say it is solid. So I was talking about the physical reality, the reality of physical objects. Suppose you were to look at measuring distances across the universe. I think if you look at the distance, let us say from here to the North Pole, from here to the South Pole, we understand vast distance. And then you look at the distance from here to the moon. Naturally, the distance from here to the poles is tiny compared to the distance from here to the moon. And the distance from here to the moon is tiny compared to the distance from Earth to Sun. And that distance is very tiny when we look at measurements across the galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy. And that distance is nothing compared to the distance from one galaxy to the next. And that is nothing compared to distances across the cosmos. Now we go in the opposite direction. Supposing I have an instrument that can go deeper and deeper and zoom out in a larger and larger way in examining inside one molecule. And then I go inside the molecule, look at one atom. And I look at that one atom and I look at inside the atom, the spaces that exist between electrons and the protons and neutrons. Then I go deeper to the quarks and mesons and so on. And I see, what do I see there? I just see space, lots and lots of space, as much as I might have encountered in going across the cosmos. So when I say I have some object, I hold a piece of stone in my hand, a piece of wood in my hand, and I say it's solid, what does it mean then? My hand is full of space, that object is full of space, vast amounts of space. And so when these two come together, what does it mean then? Somewhere the probability of subatomic particles and energies from my hand interacting with the subatomic particles in that object, we are talking about those probabilities, and our brain is sensing some measure of those probabilities. Now you see, that is very different from saying I am holding a solid object. How different that is. So naturally we understand there are realities and there are realities. There are several levels of realities, several types of realities. If we accept at least this much, it would be the beginning of our investigation and inquiry into our true self. We would say, this physical body, I don't say I am this physical body, I say I have this physical body. I have a pen, I don't say I am the pen. I am holding a pen, I don't say I am the pen. So I am an indweller of this physical body. Then what about the mind? What about the thoughts? Is there anything more to it? I know the condition of my mind because I am able to see whether I am happy, sad, agitated, peaceful. So that which I can see, I am not. And this is very beautifully laid out in a beautiful book called Drik Drishya Viveka. Drik Drishya Viveka, the difference or discrimination between the seer and the seen. It is ascribed to either Adi Shankaracharya or Swami Vidyaranya. But beautiful book. So I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am that which witnesses both. When we understand this intellectually, then there is a motivation to go deeper and experience for ourselves. If we take this line of inquiry, go into the nature of the self, what is the true nature of myself? Then I also start looking at what is the nature of the universe. And then I start looking at what is the interaction between the two. And then I ask the fourth question, how do I live every moment of my life in such a way that it is in harmony with the universe and at the same time in such a way that I am true to myself, to my inner self, the essence of myself. This set of instructions or the code by which I live in order to be in harmony with the universe. Set of instructions or the code of conduct for living in harmony with the universe, that is dharma. So, mama dharma, we owe it to ourselves and to all the beings in the universe to live in accordance with dharma, in harmony with the universe. And I go back to that other word now, Gita, Tagi, Tyagi, Tyaga. So, Tyaga or renunciation or sacrifice is an essential, indispensable part of dharma. And the Gita is providing practical ways in which we can achieve this renunciation. And it says, understand the difference between action and inaction, and understand that it is not renunciation of objects, but rather renunciation of the fruits of action, nishkama karma. So people will say, that's all very well, I need to sacrifice, but then I don't feel like it. What do I do? Then in the Bhagavad Gita, the explanations are given about certain qualities that are intrinsic in nature, naturally intrinsic in our nature also. The three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. And in this I will only give one example of understanding or rather of recognizing the importance of understanding these three gunas, why that understanding is so important. In order to act, certainly certain types of energies are required. So the question will come, why did God create these three gunas? Couldn't it have been just sattva, which is said to be more aligned with our natural state, the sahaja? Couldn't it be just sattva? An example would serve in this purpose, because God has thought about everything, and practically if we have the right understanding of the three gunas, then we will recognize why they are important. So visualize this in your mind. In a home, early in the morning, maybe around 6 or 6:30 in the morning, a mother has gone into her son's bedroom, and the child is sleeping, maybe about 8 years old. This boy is sleeping, but it is a school day. The child has to wake up and get ready and go to school. So the mother tries to wake him up in a very gentle way and say, Kanna, time aachu, ezhundukko. So in Tamil, that means, my dear, wake up, it is time. And the child continues to sleep. After a while, the mother again tries, Kanna, in a little louder voice, ezhundukko, time aachu. So the child maybe stirs a little bit. I think he is hearing his mother's voice, still kind of lethargic. And then afterwards, the mother raises her voice even more, Kanna, ezhundukkoda. And now the child is kind of coming out of his groggy state, and he knows yes, but he is still struggling with the lethargy. And then what happens? The mother finally puts her hand on the child's shoulder and shakes. Dey, ezhundukkoda, time aachu. And then the child wakes up, opens his eyes, rubs his eyes, sits on the bed and starts getting ready. Over a period of time, suppose this happens day after day after day. Now what happens? After about a month or 2 months, the mother comes in the morning. The child might actually be kind of awake, but when the mother says, Kanna, ezhundukkoda, time aachu, it's not time to get up. That is how the child understands. And when the mother again says, Kanna, ezhundukko, little louder voice, it's not time to get up. When she puts her hand on his shoulder and shakes, Dey, ezhundukkoda, time aachu, then it is time to get up. That is how the child understands. So now you see, it was not in the mother's nature or intention to shake him and to physically move his shoulders and all that. But there was a purpose and use for it. So now same way, once we understand, it is not that the mother has to create some violence. The mother has no thought of that, of physically assaulting the child or anything like that. But there was a need for that kind of an intervention. When we understand this, then we see that as long as we have the right understanding of the three gunas and we have the right control of the mind we can employ the three gunas in the right way, and that can be used to align ourselves with dharmic way of living as well. The last part I would like to mention is there are sometimes debates whether the Bhagavad Gita, since it says it's a divine song, and song means people associated with kirtan, bhajan and all that, and they think that it's about bhakti yoga, that it's all about bhakti yoga, but that would be quite wrong to make that assumption. It is not just about bhakti yoga, it is about every type of yoga. Yoga by itself means union, and so now we finally come to the song, divine song, because it says it's a song of union. It describes every single aspect of how I, the individual soul, can be reunited with the divine. So that divine song implies the procedure for reuniting me with my dearest, with God. And so it has yoga, union, but what are the different ways in which this can be effected? So many ways. It has the bhakti yoga component, it has the jnana yoga component, it has the karma yoga component, every part is there, and beautifully how they are all intertwined, how they are all connected and directly connected with each other. Just as Amma says, there is gold in jewelry, jewelry in gold. There is stone in sculpture and sculpture in stone. There is wood in furniture and furniture in wood. Likewise, there are aspects of Jnana Yoga in Karma Yoga, aspects of Karma Yoga in Bhakti Yoga, and vice versa. So this is very beautifully brought out in the Gita. So I hope that I have given just a very, very small glimpse into how the Bhagavad Gita not just provides a solution for all the ailments of our existence, but that it challenges us to look even in a more fundamental way. It challenges us to recognize if we are asking the right questions and whether our questions themselves are valid. And once we recognize which questions are valid, the solutions, the answers are then provided, and the instructions for day-to-day living are very beautifully brought out through the 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, culminating in recognizing the importance of Tyaga in order to practice Mama Dharma. And when that is done, our life becomes a beautiful song, the divine song. Om Amriteshwariyai Namaha. Om Lokaah Samastaah Sukhino Bhavantu. Lokaah Samastaah Sukhino Bhavantu. Lokaah Samastaah Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
കനിവിൻ പൊരുളേ കരുണാമയനേ കൃഷ്ണ അഭയമേകൂ കൃഷ്ണ അഭയമേകൂ കനിവിൻ പൊരുളേ കരുണാമയനേ കൃഷ്ണ Krishna abhayamegu urugiyolugumi kannir kanangal tan kathayariyunnille Krishna kathayariyunnille Kaliya sarpa സർപ്പത്തെ മെതിച്ച നിൻ പാദത്തിൽ, കാളിയ സർപ്പത്തെ മെതിച്ച നിൻ പാദത്തിൽ, പൂവിടാം പൂജിക്കാം ശ്രീകൃഷ്ണ, പൂവിടാം പൂജിക്കാം ശ്രീകൃഷ്ണ. കൃഷ്ണ 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 കനിവിൻ പൊരുളേ കരുണാമയനേ, കൃഷ്ണ അഭയമേകൂ, കൃഷ്ണ അഭയമേകൂ. കുരുക്ഷേത്രത്തിൽ പാർത്ഥസാരഥിയായി വന്നു സത്യവും ധർമ്മവും കാത്തവനേ, കുരുക്ഷേത്രത്തിൽ പാർത്ഥസാരഥിയായി വന്നു സത്യവും ധർമ്മവും കാത്തവനേ, സത്യവും ധർമ്മവും പാലിക്കും ഈശ്വര, സത്യവും ധർമ്മവും പാലിക്കും ഈശ്വര. ഞങ്ങളോടിത്തിരി കരുണ കാട്ടൂ, ഞങ്ങളോടിത്തിരി കരുണ കാട്ടൂ. കൃഷ്ണ 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 കനിവിൻ പൊരുളേ കരുണാമയനേ, കൃഷ്ണ അഭയമേകൂ, കൃഷ്ണ അഭയമേകൂ. ഗീതാ നായക സംഗീത പ്രിയനേ, നിൻ ഗീതം ചൊല്ലാൻ കരുത്തു നൽകൂ. ഗീതാ നായക സംഗീത പ്രിയനേ, നിൻ ഗീതം ചൊല്ലാൻ കരുത്തു നൽകൂ. ഉള്ളിൻ്റെ ഉള്ളിൽ നിന്നുരുവിടും നിന്നാമം, ഉള്ളിൻ്റെ ഉള്ളിൽ നിന്നുരുവിടും നിന്നാമം, കേൾക്കുന്നില്ലേ നീ ഭജനപ്രിയ, കേൾക്കുന്നില്ലേ നീ ഭജനപ്രിയ. കൃഷ്ണ 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 കനിവിൻ പൊരുളേ കരുണാമയനേ, കൃഷ്ണ അഭയമേകൂ, കൃഷ്ണ അഭയമേകൂ, കൃഷ്ണ അഭയമേകൂ, കൃഷ്ണ